Hey friends! Thanks so much for joining me for another Bible time. Many of you watching this tune into our weekly worship at FPCH, and so a special hello to all of you, my dear faith community. For y'all, the story that we are visiting today is a bit of a repeat since it's one that I discussed on a Sunday for a children's message. But I think it deserves more attention because there's just so much to it. So today I want to revisit Luke chapter 24, verses 13 through 35. Let's dive in. There's this road that we read about in the Bible. It's a road to a city called Emmaus. Now, we'll visit this road again, but in this story, some of the disciples, Jesus' friends, are walking towards Emmaus. They've just left Jesus' tomb, which was empty. They're feeling confused and scared, and they're talking amongst themselves when all of a sudden, Jesus appears. Only they don't realize that it's him. Jesus starts walking with them and explaining all of the things that have happened, telling them how even the prophets from before their time told of these events. Eventually, they get to Emmaus, and all of them, including Jesus, sit down for a meal, still discussing what has happened. And then Jesus does something. He breaks the bread, just like he did at the Last Supper. And all of a sudden, their eyes were opened. Okay, so now you remember, right? It's such an amazing encounter. Jesus didn't just show himself to one person. He showed himself to a group in community. And then that group practically ran back to Jerusalem to tell the rest of the disciples that the women weren't lying, that Jesus was really alive. They'd seen him. He walked with them. He broke bread with them. He explained everything to them. One of the things that I love about this story is that the disciples didn't recognize Jesus until he what? Until he broke the bread. What is this story trying to remind us of? That's right, the Last Supper. Jesus' mandate to serve one another, to love one another, and to remember Jesus' sacrifice through the breaking of the bread and the drinking of the cup. Whenever we hear this story, one of the things that we should think about is the wonderful mystery of the Lord's Supper, which we also call communion. In our church, we celebrate communion or the Lord's Supper typically on the first Sunday of the month. Right now we have to do it virtually, each in our own homes, but eventually we'll get to participate it in person together again. Either way we do it, the Lord's Supper is an important part of our worship. We call it a sacrament. It's a sign and a seal, one of the things that Jesus commands us to do and models for us. Baptism is another such sacrament. And it's one of the ways that Jesus makes his great love and grace known in and through us. Dale Bruner, who many of you know as Appa from when he teaches the Bible time in children's church, talks about the Lord's Supper as a holy hug. When we eat the bread and drink the juice or wine, God does something wonderful, surrounding us in Jesus' love and presence, sealing us and marking us with his love. Marking us as God's child and inviting us into deeper relationship with God's self. When we participate in the Lord's Supper, we open ourselves up to God's grace, God's presence, and deeper faith and understanding through the work and promises of Jesus. As we prepare for our next encounter with the Lord's Supper, or communion, whatever you like to call it, I want you to talk with your family and think about this. What does it mean that their eyes were opened as soon as Jesus broke the bread? Does Jesus meet us in the same way when we participate in the Lord's Supper? Friends, I love you so much, and I'm so thankful to be part of God's family with you. May our living Savior Jesus be with you today and always. Bye, friends.